The frontier heating trick was so effective that, honestly, soldiers later copied it in World War II. The story hits you like a slap of cold wind. One settler, laughed at by his neighbors for placing his fireplace in what they called the stupidest possible corner, ended up with a cabin that stayed a full 22 degrees warmer than everyone else's in the dead of winter. While the others shivered, piled on blankets, and huddled like exhausted soldiers in a trench, this man sat comfortably, warm, fed, and, well, quietly smug. And the best part? His little mistake would later help inspire heating tricks used in rugged outposts, survival shelters, and even wartime bunkers during World War II. This is the kind of story we live for here on Wisdom from the Frontlines. A small decision, a tiny tweak, a tiny spark of rebellion, turns into a survival advantage that, honestly, makes all the difference when nature decides to test you. So let's get straight into exactly how he pulled this off, why it worked better than anything his neighbors were doing, and how the same principles still beat modern heating setups when the grid goes down. On the frontier, people built fireplaces dead center against the main wall. It looked tidy, it looked balanced, and it followed tradition. But tradition doesn't keep you warm, physics does. Our settler, whether by instinct, luck, or stubbornness, pushed his entire fireplace into the southwest corner of his cabin. To his neighbors, it looked wrong, off balance, like the cabin was leaning toward the fire. But here's the twist. A corner fireplace heats 2 walls instead of 1, doubling the radiant surface area. More heated surface area means more stored warmth. More stored warmth means the cabin doesn't cool down the second the flames die. It was like turning his entire cabin into a thermal battery. This wasn't just a small boost. It created a heat pocket that wrapped the interior like a warm coat, something the others never understood, even while they watched smoke pour from his chimney long after theirs had gone cold. A fireplace is only as strong as the draft feeding it. Most settlers built theirs on the wall that faced prevailing winter winds. Why? Habit. That's it. Problem was, wind pressure fought the draft. A strong gust could push smoke back inside, choking the flames and dropping the temperature. They were basically building fireplaces in the worst possible spots year after year. But the man with the stupid corner fireplace? Well, his placement actually captured the natural low-pressure airflow, pulling air smoothly into the fire and sending smoke straight upward. No backdraft, no wasted heat, no struggling flame. This created a hotter, cleaner burn, something frontline engineers in World War II would later depend on when designing bunkers, field shelters, and forward outposts that needed to stay warm without blowing their position. When air moves with the fire, not against it, everything changes. Most fireplaces, they heat the room only while the flames are really roaring. Once the fire fades, well, the heat fades right along with it. Not in this cabin, though. Here's the trick. A corner fireplace doesn't just heat the air. It heats the structure itself. Both walls around the fire. They absorbed the warmth, and since they met at a 90-degree angle, the heat just pooled there instead of dispersing. Even a weak flame had honestly amplified staying power. Imagine the neighbors waking up at dawn to see their breath freezing in the air while this guy opened his eyes to a cabin still sitting above 50 degrees even after the fire had been out for hours. That's the difference, really, between surviving winter and conquering it. Corners don't just trap heat, they move it. As the warm air rose from the corner, it spiraled across the ceiling and naturally spread toward the center of the room. Think of it like a built-in circulator. Meanwhile, Cold air pooled on the opposite side near the door. And here's where this man unknowingly imitated wartime engineers. By placing the fire in the corner closest to the entrance, he created a convection loop that constantly pulled cold air toward the fire, warmed it, and sent it back into the room. This is the same airflow pattern purposely designed into underground bomb shelters and emergency bunkers during World War II. When you control air circulation, you control temperature without burning through resources. They burned more wood, a lot more, some nearly double. But, bigger isn't better if the setup is wrong. Their fireplaces, well, they fought against the wind, heated only one wall, sent warm air straight up and out, and, suffered smoke backflow that reduced burn quality. Meanwhile, our settler burned less, burned cleaner, and heated more efficiently simply because he broke the pattern everyone else followed. Call it stubbornness, call it intuition, or call it survival wisdom that would later show up in log cabins, ranger stations, and soldier-built shelters from Alaska to the battlefields of Europe. He wasn't lucky. He was, honestly, unintentionally brilliant. When the grid collapses, or when winter simply decides to show its teeth, your setup matters more than your fuel. Placement can outperform power. Structure can beat struggle. And really, understanding how heat moves gives you an edge that technology just can't replace. People in modern homesteads, off-grid setups, and even tiny homes still use the same principles this settler discovered. Military field engineers still borrow from it when designing compact, low-signature heating systems. And survival experts still say the same thing. Heat isn't about fire. It's about flow. That's the wisdom the settlers learned too late, and the wisdom that kept one cabin warmer than an entire frontier settlement combined.